So I did read some of your reporting, and in my research, I came across some really horrible stories. There was a kid who saw, and this is paraphrased, but two naked men running around, and they just sort of spotted him and ran after him with a machete. They gave him brain damage, and I can't believe I have to read this and say this, they castrated this poor kid. And he was awake and he remembers the whole thing. And it's really one of the most evil things I've ever heard. And there's no other way to put it. What's even more shocking is they caught the guys, but they released them without charge. And some of that is what? Corruption? And what's the rest? We just don't have a law that says you can't do this?
Yeah. So there's most of that is right. He didn't see anybody naked running around. He was abducted by one of his neighbors, and
I see.
And everything else that you just said follows. Yeah, he was caught. He was stabbed in the neck with a machete. They drained his blood and castrated him because he was a child at the time. In fact, he was a child at the time. Because he was a child, his eyewitness account was not enough to secure a conviction, and he then lived within the same village as this man who had attacked him. Obviously, he survived. He lived in the same village as this man and would see him most days, and there was absolutely nothing that he could do or his family could do to put him away. And so he had to live with that trauma, the memory. He had reconstructive surgery in Australia, a charity, and very kindly funded that. But what I will say is that since the law has passed, we have put that man away. And
thank goodness.
He is now in prison. So
that's finally some good news. That must have felt really good because that guy, again, it's one of the most evil things I can think of. We have conspiracy theories here in the United States where people are like, the Democrats have a secret child sacrifice ring in the basement of a pizza parlor or whatever. But this is like the real version of that. And it's really, really, really awful that they're getting away with it. It's really, really bad. And it must feel good to put somebody like that away because I can't help but think that was not his first attempt at a child sacrifice. It's just the one where he got caught.
No, exactly. And in fact, since Alan, he's actually he's given quite a few interviews and he's sort of online for people to see and read his story. The man who attacked him actually did go on to sacrifice other children. And because Alan's story got quite a lot of traction, the BBC went over and filmed their own documentary and secretly filmed this man posing as businessmen wanting to obtain a child. And this man very openly and brazenly said, yeah, whatever you want, this is how we do it. And the like. So yes, he absolutely had continued to do that once he'd attacked Alan and didn't feel in any way threatened by the legal system.
It's so horrific, and it really puts your work into stark relief, trying to get a law passed that criminalizes this, chasing these people down, essentially. Yeah, there's hidden camera footage of this witch doctor explaining, oh yeah, we befriend a child, which is just adds grossness on top of grossness. We befriend a child, we kidnap them, we murder them. It's just, I'm never going to forget that. And I can imagine having a child and there's somebody in your community doing this and you're just, crossing the street when you see them coming? I mean, that's all you can do is avoid them and tell your kids to run if they see that guy. It's so... Yeah, it's so screwed up.
It's awful. And I interviewed the parents as well, actually, as part of my sort of work. And, they just felt so let down. Here is the evidence of what this man has done. And my son is telling you that this is the one who did it. But there just wasn't enough to secure a conviction. And they had to live with that, with absolutely no faith. His parents really felt as though the legal system had failed them, and I agree with them. I absolutely agree with them, and that is absolutely their story is one of those that really spurred me on to find the right people to work with to make sure that this bill was passed.
I hate to harp on the horrific details, but I think it makes sense because people are wondering, wait, they're burying a kid at a construction site. What's going on here? So I'll tell it so you don't have to, and then you just tell me if I get it wrong. Is that easier for you?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're taking parts of these kids and they're mixing them into traditional medicine. So the most popular, I guess, would be the head, tongue, heart, and unfortunately the genitals, which is, well, I guess they're all equally terrible. I don't know why that seems worse somehow, but it's all while the child is alive, for whatever reason. And the girl who was born for sacrifice was one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard in my life. And I'm serious about this. There's a girl who was essentially raised so that they could harvest parts of her. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So she was kept in a shrine for the first 8 years of her life before she was obviously rescued. And she was gradually sacrificed. So the witch doctor would... This is really harrowing. I don't know if it's okay to talk about this.
It's okay to talk about it, and my editor will make a short, decision afterwards. But if you need to pause, it's okay as well.
No, the witch doctor would remove parts of her gums, her teeth, her fingernails, not taking much at any one time, because obviously she was meant to stay alive, right? But they gradually sacrificed her to the point that by the time I'd met her, she was in a wheelchair. She couldn't speak. She couldn't hear anything. And they had all but destroyed her. And there was absolutely no legislation on this. It was, the only way that anybody were to be put away was if you were to prove that they had murdered somebody. And it was so difficult to prove that with existing legislation. But we have put in this provision that allows those who do exactly what that man did to her to be put away. She is in a better place now, obviously. But that was something that I had never come across. I always thought, actually, that sacrificing children always ended up and resulted in death. And that is absolutely not the case. It was awful. It was absolutely horrible to meet her. She had been essentially used all her life.
I can't even imagine the type of person that does that. I keep coming back to this. I know I sound like a broken record, but I just can't imagine any belief system strong enough to make this okay, especially while you're doing it. I just can't get there. I can't get there. And I remember learning about things like the Holocaust and the things that happened to extended family of mine and during World War II. And with extreme belief comes all this crazy stuff. But this is like the one place I just can't get there. No matter how much I think about it, I can't imagine the path that gets you there.
No. And we've not grown up in that world, Jordan, and again, I'm not making excuses for these people, because at the end of the day, they are greedy. I think what the essence of this is greed. And at the heart of this are the witch doctors, right? Who are the ones encouraging this to happen. If not for them, and if not for this ridiculous idea that if you sacrifice a child, you'll become rich and prosperous, then people wouldn't be doing it. Or certainly they wouldn't be doing it at the same level that they are. They are, creating an environment where people feel like this is okay. They're being actively encouraged to do this. So, and so, I know it's really difficult to try and understand who would do something like this. And I feel like at the very heart, these are witch doctors who believe and understand that this is a business and a very profitable one.